Hi, welcome back to Beyond the Boundary Road. I'm Jadine Croft, and joining me is our language researcher, Des Crump. Hey, Des.
Hello.
Stories play a significant part in the culture of all Indigenous Australians. They were passed down orally through every generation with tales of ancestors and legends, which was a way of preserving culture. But now, in the digital age, virtual storytelling has become a new way of sharing important information. So thanks for joining us, Des. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me again.
So what is virtual storytelling when it comes to the revitalisation of First Nations languages, and how do you think it has evolved?
Well, basically virtual storytelling is taking those print versions of stories and turning them into digital or virtual books. And so, for example, the State Library has published about 10 or 12 virtual stories from across Queensland, so languages such as Yugambeh, south of Brisbane, Butchulla in the Hervey Bay, Gamilaroi from southwest Queensland, Gudgel from Charters Towers, and turn those stories into a virtual book that you can read online.
Wow, so how are these virtual stories created, and do you mind giving us some examples?
Well, basically there is some very good software around to create it or turn it into a virtual book, but essentially it means putting the sound and the images together, and the software creates the turning of the pages so that we've got an actual book to read, and so the pages can be turned over online and read just like a normal book.
Wow. So Des, can you tell us how can virtual stories, how can they be distributed to reach the wider communities?
Well, with the State Library ones, for example, those online versions, they can be accessed from anywhere across the world via the internet. Or the other option is making them available through the local libraries, the Indigenous Knowledge Centres, so that they've got their own copies. Vimeo channel is also a good way, so a lot of our material that we put on the State Library website, it's also placed on our Vimeo channel. And then some of the language centres are also looking at YouTube as another means of distributing those stories.
Yeah, so who do you think could be the beneficiaries of this integration?
Well, I think it benefits, first of all, the communities that are reviving the language, and it's making it accessible, particularly for the young people to sit down and read those stories and listen to the stories basically every day if they want to. But then it's also reaching that wider audience, that wider community where the general public then can listen to and hear languages from right across Queensland.
Yeah. So Des, can you tell us about how Indigenous Australians have interacted with new social interactive media like Vimeo, YouTube or Wikipedia?
Well, like I mentioned, there's a couple of language centres that are already putting up their own Vimeo channels, their YouTube video clips, and that basically sharing some of those local stories or local histories from their local area and placing it online, not just for their own community, but for people who are connected to that community, but they may be living in other parts of Queensland.
So words have lost their meaning over the decades through misinterpretation and through translation. So how do you think, Des, we can rectify this?
Well, I think probably the best way is actually trying to compare it with that community knowledge, because there is still a lot of knowledge in our communities there. It may be tucked away in their subconscious, but there's still that living memory of language and how it's pronounced, how it sounds. And then I think if there's a way of blending that knowledge with the written knowledge, just to, I guess, compare, check, analyse those words to see if what was written down was actually what was being said by our old people.
Yeah. Des, what are the challenges in documenting the languages from all these various communities?
Well, the biggest challenge is not having enough speakers that still use the language on a daily basis, limited resources to produce materials and to collect the material, do the research. That's always a big issue for communities, because language revival is a very long-term process. It could be anywhere between 5-10 years to revive a language back to having it spoken on a daily basis.
Yeah. Des, can you describe the process of compiling a dictionary of any of the local languages?
Okay, well, there was some historical dictionaries made for the local southeast languages, and so that's a good starting point. But then looking at other historical material and sources that might exist for southeast Queensland, and then sitting down with the community, gaining their knowledge. There might be word lists still in families that have been passed down from generations, and then sitting down with a linguist then, or someone with that language knowledge and expertise to help analyse and put the words together, the pronunciation guide, and then sit down with the community and complete a community dictionary or a resource that can be used in the community for all the generations to try.
Have you started integrating your language into a digital medium?
Yes, well, with some of the work I've been doing in the schools and working with communities in the southwest, I've done a little bit of the recording and producing some resources. So I'm also fortunate enough that the Walgett language program in New South Wales has actually developed an interactive CD-ROM that's available either online or as a standalone to put on a computer. And using it, you can find words, listen to traditional stories, play games using language, songs based on traditional stories, but also some contemporary translations of songs as well. So Gamilla, I guess, is lucky enough in that regard. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Des, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks again.
Next week, Des and I will be back and we'll be discussing how contact languages have influenced Aboriginal languages. Stay with us on Beyond the Boundary Road after this break.